me? No.
Oh, shit. I don't know.
It's all good.
Go ahead, Nate. Thank
It's
you.
all good. So yeah, it's my pleasure to announce Carmen, our speaker tonight. I've had the good fortune to have met Carmen through my sponsee, Craig, is his daughter, and she has found sobriety. I don't know exactly if it was through him or because of that and around, but we've gotten to know each other a little bit. I've been able to hang out and fellowship with her outside of these meetings. We've a couple bad bowling nights, we celebrated her birthday recently and all the rest. A delightful and caring and lovely human being. So I'm really excited because I've heard her share a few times in meetings, but I've never heard her story. So I'm looking forward to it. So Carmen, please.
Okay. Hello. My name is Carmen. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I think the things that I was thinking about when I thought about being a suspect were not really the right things. So I was like, I need some notes. I'm just kind of all over the place. So I asked my dad, what do you think I should talk about? And he gave me 3 questions, which I really appreciate because I love a question. So those questions were what you were like, what happened, and what you're like now. So you will get to hear a little bit about me and how I got to this. So I do have today 2 years, 4 months, and 22 days. And yeah, that's a little bit of a restart for me. I actually started my Alcoholics Anonymous journey in 2022, which if you do the math, it's not 2 years ago. And I really just, what I was like, I was very unsure. I felt like I was expecting people to fix me. I felt like I wanted others to give me the answers. And I wasn't really leaning into the courage that you hear in the Serenity Prayer and the courage of living and the courage of doing things on your own. I wanted people to give me the answers, really. I had very high anxiety, which was part of what drove me to drink. I was told by, 1 or 2 boyfriends that I was maybe a little mean, maybe a little bit of a bully. But I always felt like it was justified. I always felt like they're poking the bear, they're doing something. And I was always quick to say something slick. That's mean. Even if it's warranted in some ways, I was really just masking. And it was really that masking of the anxiety for me. That was the biggest thing. But ultimately, I just wanted to pass the buck and blame the pain that I'd been through. It's from a lot of the stories I've heard from all of these other amazing people I've been able to meet through this program. That's the thing. We all come from painful situations and painful stories. And that's what I was blaming it on. I said, it's just because of this. It's just because of that. Oh, my dad's an alcoholic. I need to drink too. It's, whatever. And I wanted to be right about that. And I wanted drinking to be able to fix my problems. So yeah, that's my how I was. What happened, I realized during COVID that I probably had a problem because I was sending people to Costco and having them buy me gallons of vodka. And they would drop them off at my doorstep all nice. And, sometimes there's a note and sometimes there was a receipt. And, that fact that I felt like I needed that in that time was just already something churning in my mind. COVID started in 2019, didn't actually get sober till 2022. So I needed to think about it, needed to churn on that. Towards the end of COVID, I began to develop that allergy that you may have heard of. That idea that your body is either going to hate the alcohol or it's going to need the alcohol. And I had figured out that if I had less than 3 drinks, I wanted to reject it. And if I had more than 3 drinks, I was fine. I was a joy. I was a ball. I was, still throwing up in an alley somewhere, but it was fine. It was no problem. Um, and I just was kind of like, well, this is just what drinking's like. I had been a binge drinker since I was 16 or 17, and that was the reaction that all of my friends had to it. So this is just what drinking is supposed to be like. I'm 30, so drinking for half my life at that point, basically. Um, I just felt like that was what I needed, and that was what I was doing. And again, raised by an alcoholic, you see it happening. It's so casual. But again, my dad wasn't an alcoholic anymore, or my dad had recognized that he was an alcoholic and was treating that. So if he's able to treat it, and he had been an alcoholic for longer than I was alive, then if I need to look at myself a little bit more, and I really need to question, am I potentially an alcoholic? Am I going through the same things he went through? Maybe I can find some help. Maybe I can find some friends. Maybe I can find some sort of courage. And it was really scary, but I went to his birthday meeting about 3 years ago. Or not 3 years ago. I went to his 3-year birthday meeting. There we go. Um, and I remember sitting in the room and hearing all these people talk about this guy. And I was like, I don't know if I know that guy. They'd been getting to know him in a way that I wasn't able to get to know him, partially because he opened himself up in a new way in the rooms, but also partially because I was still drinking. And being somebody who's still drinking and forcing myself to be around somebody who's sober, that's putting them through something they don't deserve, but it's also putting me through something I don't deserve because we can't see each other eye to eye in the same way. And I wanted to get to know him. That I wanted to be able to hear him speak. I wanted to be able to hear his story. And I wanted to be able to have people talk about me the way that people talked about him. And so in that meeting, I literally said, they said, oh, is there anybody here for the first time of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I stood up and I was like, hey guys, my name is Carmen. And I didn't know I was going to say this, but I think I'm an alcoholic. And I was kind of stressed out. And I was like, what am I doing? My legs were shaking. I felt like I was in middle school, like giving a stand to deliver and in a room full of strangers that are like giving my dad praise. And I was just like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. They understand this. They're going to understand it. They're going to welcome you. They're going to try and help you. And that's really how it felt after that. And it still took me a bit of time to come around and really feel settled in what I was. But after I did end up restarting my clock because I felt like I had a slip. Some people have heard about it, but it doesn't matter. It was enough of a slip for me to feel like I wasn't standing in that courage. Like I wasn't leaning onto the wisdom. Like I wasn't really learning what I should have learned from the program. And that was kind of my reset. So I reset my clock. And now I've kind of even reset my clock again because I stopped smoking weed. And that was a whole nother addiction that I had to discover. And that is very much what I'm like now. I'm to the point where I'm reflecting on who I am and who I want to be, and if I am following through on the things that I want to do, and if I am really the person that I want to know. And every single day, I feel like I'm kind of getting closer to that. I'm not a very pompous person like some alcoholics I know. They might be a little cocky and think they have all the answers or whatever. I'm a little bit more anxious than that. I think I'm very nervous to say that I have my own answers, which is part of why I drank, like I said. But I just am very unsure about uh, what I need to do. So now I have a sponsor and I'm working the steps. I'm between step 3 and 4, which is a interesting place to be. I'm reading my way through the big book. I'm in a group chat with some sober sisters. I'm in another group chat with some silly doofs. I'm leaning into the community in a way that I have not really let myself lean into a community before, because I know that I have trust issues, and I know that I have other trauma that my sobriety is just going to continue to unlock, which is probably why I'm so stuck between step 3 and 4. Because every time I start to lean into, okay, I'm done with step 3, now I'm moving on to step 4, I'm like, oh God, I'm so stressed about that list. I'm so stressed about all the regrets and the remorse and all the things that I know are just going to come bubbling out, because I already journal. I already have gone to therapy. I've already done all these things. And so I'm a little scared. But the fact that I'm able to name that now, and I don't just have to go hide that in a bottle or hide that in a joint or go hide that in some other nefarious way that we don't need to go into, like, it feels better. It honestly does. I feel like I am a better person. I feel like I am able to feel a broader spectrum of my emotions. And when those emotions that are big do come up, I'm able to just deal with them in a little bit of a healthier way. I'm able to identify, hey, you might be starting to bubble over and boiling, but let's just take it off the burner. Let's just, and sometimes that looks like screaming aloud in my car. Sometimes that looks like going to a rave and dancing my ass off. Sometimes that looks like just sitting in the sun. But I wasn't able to really feel the difference when I was drinking. And I thought that it made it better. And I thought that it made it easier. But in reality, it was just like putting a weighted blanket on top of everything. And I didn't realize how heavy it was until I stopped doing it. And now I feel like I took off the ankle weights that I was wearing when I was walking around Seward Park Loop. It feels like I'm skipping, and like I can just feel the sun in a different way, and like I can just sit with myself and just be a little bit quieter. And I genuinely do feel like I'm not quite to the point of feeling more confident in everything that I say and everything that I am, but I do feel like I'm getting there. And I do feel like I'm doing things that are positively working towards that. Um, and I just feel more intentional with my words. And some of my friends think like, oh, well, you don't talk as much as you used to. And I was like, yeah, because I was just saying shit. I just wanted to be in the conversation. I thought, oh, if I don't say something, they're not going to remember that I'm here. Like, that's genuinely what I thought. And then I was drinking, and then I was, okay, now I can say whatever the fuck I want. Nobody's going to know. Oh, this is who I am. I'm a fun, cool kid. I was like, whatever. And then it got to a point where that was exhausting. And that was tiring. And I was saying things I didn't actually mean, or I was saying something that was maybe mean. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I do feel like it is like the serenity prayer has always stuck out to me, even before I found sobriety. And now I feel like I can connect with it in a more honest way, where I can really say, like, I am able to accept the things I cannot change. My patience has only improved. I was a very patient person before, but now it's like bounds and leaps above anything else. Like, my courage to change things I can't, I'm still working on it, but it's there. I can see it. I can see it growing, and I can feed it, and I can just give it some little fertilizer here and there, and I can say it's okay. We are literally working on the things I can change. I'm working on giving myself more courage and the wisdom to know the difference. Like, I've always been a relatively wise person, I think. I've always hung out with the older people in the room, to my detriment in some cases socially, but that's beside the point. But it's, like, I think the wisdom to know the difference for me is knowing that it's okay for me to not have to say something, to know that I'm still present in the room, which has really just come with a sense of self-respect that I definitely did not have when I was drinking. The rooms I would let myself be in those situations baffle me. And I would be so protective of little me if only I could go back and pull myself out of those spaces. But yeah, whoever can hear this, and maybe this wakes you up and you can pull yourself out of those spaces. That's what this is for. And maybe you have a friend that needs to hear it and you can share it with them and they can pull themselves out of those spaces, or they can call you to pull themselves out of those spaces. But yeah, I'm really blessed to be here. I'm really grateful for the folks that have trusted me and given me their time and effort and patience. And yeah, really proud to be this suspect for Rob.